to basically talk about Endgame today, guys, and there's been a lot of debate about, obviously, on the ending, what people thought, and like, I'm just introducing who I am to your viewers so they know who I am.
Sure.
I'm Shamoon Reacts. I've just basically started a YouTube channel. I thought, why the hell not? I love Marvel. I love films.
Woo!
You know, get yourself out there and discuss about it. I mean, YouTube's a great platform for that, so...
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm UMNIA. My viewers know that, but for your viewers, I'm UMNIA. I run a YouTube channel that used to be all about kind of K-pop covers, but now we're pivoting to a podcast called Nerd You that comes out every Sunday, and just a whole bunch of other really cool videos on the way as well on my channel that are just a bit of everything. Again, it's kind of like follow your passion, follow what you like.
Exactly.
So just kind of doing a little bit of everything.
You've got to, nowadays, like, I think more people have got to install that into their heads. Like, it is about your passion and what you want to do. Like, nothing
because
overrides that.
if you're right now in the world, there's very little chance of doing anything unless you're really passionate about it. Because other people are going to be passionate about it and outwork you. So you've got to follow what you like. Absolutely. Right, Endgame. Let's do it.
Right. So let's start with, what was your view on, like, before Endgame, like, what were you expecting?
To be honest, I'm one of those crazy people that watches every single theory video on YouTube. And so every single thing that ended up happening in the movie, bar maybe Fat Thor, I was expecting. Oh, my God. Yeah, bar Fat Thor, I was expecting everything, and yet I wasn't mad. Like, I wasn't mad about anything. Like, down to Professor Hulk, down to Tony dying, I mean... Spoilers, but I mean...
spoiler alert.
obviously, I mean, at this point, everyone in the world has seen it. We all need to go see it like 4 more times so we can beat Avatar.
I still don't get enough.
Yeah, right? Like, I'm going to go see it just 1 more time this week just to try and stick it to James Cameron just a little bit more. But yeah, no, everything else I expected. What was interesting to me is the format of it. And the one other thing other than Fat Thor that I was not expecting was the death of Black Widow, which no one saw coming.
Do you know what? So I was expecting at least 1 death to happen from the original 6, and I was thinking it's probably going to be
Hawkeye,
either Hawkeye, or maybe like one of the big guys, because it feel like if they just killed a side character, you just feel like there could have been more impact, right? But the fact they killed 2.
They killed 2.
I mean, with Widow as well, she's got like a great future ahead of her. Scarlett Johansson's producing and acting for the Black Widow film.
Yeah.
And then,
as I was watching it, as they were fighting, like Black Widow and Hawkeye, I was like, Hawkeye's going off the edge because I mean Black Widow, and I think that's what's crazy about Marvel is that they don't care. Like, they don't care. You can go in thinking, yeah, sure, Black Widow's fine. She's got a movie coming up. Nope, we're gonna kill her.
The thing is, even before the movie, I was thinking, like, regardless of what happens to her, I think they would have done a prequel. Because we were always hearing about Budapest, Avengers 1, Endgame, they mention it while they're in the Quinjet, like, or the Benatar. Like, they're constantly mentioning what's going on, and I'd love to understand what it was. Like, she even knew who Bucky was.
Is that gonna be like a Fury's Eye situation where it's like you think it's really epic and actually it was just a cat, or like Flurgan or whatever?
I think it's. I mean, with the Black Widow movie.
Yeah,
they built up the entire prequel storyline just by the reference Budapest.
Yeah,
and I feel like if it was set right after Endgame, I would have liked to see Widow in a more bigger role. So, you know, like how Nick Fury is like the director of Shield. She's earned that spot in Shield. Like, if there was a new Shield to be reinstated, I think Widow would be the person to basically start it.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine if she had like her own?
Oh, that would have been a great idea.
I would have loved to see her have like, this is Black Widow's moment to like show the world, like, you know, how Shield should be, and it kind of gives her a second chance at life, because, you know, the public, when do you remember in Winter Soldier when she revealed those files about Alexander Pierce, and he says, well, the world will know who you are. Are you ready? And she goes, are you? She took that risk, but she could clear her name if she was something, you know. But
I think it would have been cool to play off the fact that she's been part of this like super team of superheroes for so long, and then everyone knew about all the crap, like the awful stuff that she did.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think that there was a wealth of story there. I don't doubt it. And it would have also, I think, I completely get why they picked Black Widow. Like, it makes sense to me that she
really
died.
does.
But I would have wanted to see her at the helm of that A-Force moment in the final bit of the film.
Oh, that is really good one as well. Because like,
right? That really upset me. I was like, every other woman in the MCU is in this shot except Black Widow.
If they killed her, it could have been in the fight with Thanos. Like,
right?
It could have been more impactful. Like, not saying the Soul Stone, sacrifice was not, but if you saw, like, because we never saw Thanos apart from Loki and Heimdall and like Vision, we never saw him kill anyone in Endgame. And do you see how hungry he was? So hungry to kill. Like in Infinity War, he has the stones.
And then
he's
he didn't
like,
kill anyone.
It's like he's on weed. Like, yeah, I'm chill here. I just basically got to do my thing. I've got the stones. But when he is in Endgame, he's seen from the Nebula twist as well. We'll talk about that in a bit. When he saw what they did in the other timeline, you could see it basically switched him on. Like, I've got to fucking kill these guys. Like,
yeah. It's no try. It's do or do not.
Yeah, exactly.
It was very kind of
like,
cut and dry at that point.
Do you know in the moment? So the MCU trinity of Cap, Iron Man, and Thor, when they approach him, when he grabs Stark, he's ready to rip in him half, and then it's only when Thor throws Mjolnir he survives, and like
I think what was so great about that fight, like that final boss fight between the three of them and Thanos, is they gave each of them enough time to fail before they brought out all the other characters.
Exactly,
because it could have very well been like, because the snap had already happened by that point, so it could have very well been, here's Thanos, and there's the three of us, and then here's Spider-Man. Like, they could have really skipped that moment to prove that these guys now have gone from fighting each other to fighting other people really effectively, like down to like the way they were working in concert in that final fight was insane. And then
I loved
off goes Iron Man, probably huge concussion, like I'm not even sure he would have got out of that bit alive regardless.
When you see Cap and Thor like taking it, like when the moment
serious.
When Thor gets busted up, I'm like, Thanos had probably waited for that moment, like,
right
after they obviously didn't show the footage, but after he saw, well, they showed like whoever cut his head off, which was he didn't know at the time, which was Thor, like he knew this guy really wanted to kill him, and you could see like when he got Stormbreaker, when he grabbed it off Thor, you could see he was like, I really want to impale this guy. And then the best moment, and this is definitely hands down the best moment of the MCU, like in an Endgame, and is when Mjolnir, you just see it levitating. And then you see him, you see Thanos get hit.
And then everyone puts two and two together because Iron Man's out of commission and there's no one else. So who is it? It has to be Cap. And I think it was so interesting. Back when it was Age of Ultron and everyone was having that debate about whether he was worthy or not, a lot of people went, oh, he's just not worthy. And in my head, this whole time of like, that's not true. That's not true. He was faking it. He was faking it.
I'm glad you said that.
Right?
Because basically the Russos confirmed that he didn't pick Mjolnir up, he nudged it, but that was probably him preventing him from picking it up because he didn't want Thor to be embarrassed in front of the other Avengers. And then when Vision did it, it was like he's an AI, he's not exactly human, and the rules don't apply to him. But when Cap like went to this, he probably knew inside he could do it. But then there's the other theory that I love, this fan theory, and I'm sure you've heard of it. Cap basically couldn't lift Mjolnir because he didn't reveal the truth about Tony Stark's parents.
Tony's parents, I heard that one.
But the reason why this isn't plausible is because, according, I think this is what Joss Whedon said, or this is just how the theory is. Like, so you are either worthy or you're not worthy. There's no middle. So in terms of that logic, Cap would have been not worthy.
Yeah, worthy all the time. Yeah,
and
yeah.
like, or he would have been worthy all the time.
There is no kind of switch now that you've told the truth.
Yeah.
Also, the other thing is that in that moment, if you remember it from Civil War, it's not like Cap absolutely knew that those were his parents, and that Bucky had absolutely killed them. Because in that moment he's kind of like, I didn't know it was him, or there's like a line in there where and then Tony goes, "Don't bullshit me, Rogers," or whatever it was, and so I think even then, it, like, to me, absolutely, it's you're worthy or you're not worthy, and I think the embarrassment theory is completely true because also, just think about it from like a meta point of view. If you're a writer, of course you want to leave that until like you're about to kill Cap. You leave it until the last moment. Otherwise, now you've got to, writing Cap with Mjolnir long term is not, you do that as like the final fireworks before the end of the show.
You have to create such a build, because could you imagine just if Cap lifted it in Age of Ultron, like,
and now what?
I think Age of Ultron would have been a better movie just because of that moment, but I think the build up, what would they do in Endgame? Like, they'd still probably happen, but would it be more like, better fighting, but the way they introduced it, like the combos he did, and like with his shield, and I loved how
when I first saw the movie, I was in New York and I was with an American audience, which makes all the difference, by the way. If you're listening, you like, book a ticket next time there's a big Avengers movie or a big Marvel movie. Go to the States, because
that's something I want to do. I've always wanted to do that.
The Americans go up, my dude. Like, we don't even know. And so I was sitting there, like 1 a.m. in New York at the very front in these crappy seats, because you can't buy tickets in the UK for a US show. So I had to buy them last minute. When I got there, I'm looking up, my head is at like a 180 degree angle looking up at the screen, and then Cap gets the hammer and the place erupts.
Oh
and then,
my God.
As he starts doing these combos, it's more and more screaming, and I just hear myself like start bumping up and screaming. So I'm like, holy crap, oh my god, oh my god. Oh my god.
I wish so knowing how everyone reacted, like, it was definitely the biggest moment of the MCU, personally, as well. Yeah. So I don't know why, I just wish I kind of just got my phone out and then recorded the voice reaction of everything. Because, like, I would have loved to hear my own reaction. Like, I remember what I said. So when I was with my brother and two of my mates, so we went to sit at Leicester Square in London.
Oh, nice.
It's
good
at
call.
the Cineworld, so they were doing this 4DX screening of it. And
nice.
like, I was like, we need to check that out. I went to see Infinity War in IMAX 3D the year before. I absolutely love that. The audience there, it feels like you're in America. But
good.
It's literally like, that's what I've always wanted, right?
You got that experience.
Yeah, and like, obviously the moment with Thor and Wakanda, that stole the show. Like, everyone was going crazy because we could see what his real capability as Thor was. And then obviously for Endgame, the moment Mjolnir lifted up, I was saying to my brother, like, oh bro, I know who it is. Like, I literally was up on my feet. And then the moment that thing comes back to him, I'm like, yeah! I'm like shouting, fuck yeah! I'm like, yeah, fuck him up, Cap! And the moment he's like, doing all these combos to Thanos, I'm like, I'm just getting more and more hyped. Like, I'm really like, I'm swearing, I'm cheering. I'm like, yeah, fuck him up. Because in Infinity War, Cap didn't get like a real payoff against Thanos, right? He just got like he had a really badass moment, and that was to display his willpower as Cap.
Yeah.
This time it was.
You mean the moment where he's
balanced.
like holding back the gauntlet in Infinity War?
Yes, that's correct.
That
like
bit.
he was.
Yeah.
He really tried to prevent, like, Thanos underestimated him because he's like, how can he hold me back? Like, didn't realize his strength. And like,
I mean,
in a way,
I was pretty sure that that bit where, like, just before Falcon's like, can you hear me on your left?
Oh my god,
like,
yes.
Full on. So Cap's like pale as a sheet, and he looks like he's dead, right?
His legs injured.
Yeah, and I was pretty sure that was just going to be like, and Cap's dead. Like, I thought that was going to be Cap's death. And then he just gets up, and I'm just kind of like, I've lost my bearing a bit, because I'm like, wait, he's still alive? How is he going to... What's he... There were two instances where I was like, oh, Cap's dead. Literally, the other one was minutes beforehand when... Like, the whole of the Avengers Tower had crushed on everyone. And I was like, someone's got to die in that. That was atrocious. Someone must be dead.
Like, and what I loved is... So you were saying about earlier in this, like how they all had their moment to fight him. I felt like when Thor and Iron Man had their fights, and obviously Iron Man Infinity War, if Iron Man had another fight with Thanos, of course it's gonna overshadow what Cap or Thor would do.
Yeah, exactly.
They needed to balance it, and it was great how they did it. And I was hoping like there'd be a moment with Cap versus Thanos, and the way they did it could not be better. And you know the comic reference where it's that lovely view of you've got like Cap on his own, and you got Thanos, and he's got all his army behind him, and then when Cap fastens his shield, you can see this massive gash in his forearm. Obviously, that was caused by Thanos going on a really mad rampage of strikes with his helicopter blade, and it was pretty mad.
And they nailed it. They really nailed it.
Oh, they basically went to town with that. I feel that, you know, from the start of Iron Man 1, I feel, because they plan the 22 films, but they don't obviously, I don't know if they are planning to do what they did in Endgame like 10 years before, but maybe they knew, they had like vague kind of like things of it, but they weren't like sure. Because obviously you've got to see how it goes. Like, you might need to adapt to the situation, you know, like if, for example, something to do with Hulk, or like, you know, the whole Universal Studios copyright problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, no one was expecting that, and it would have been cool to see another Hulk film, but of course, like, they did great for how the 11 years turned out. Like, I didn't feel like the MCU has slopped in any way.
No, and I think I heard recently that like they're going to try, or at least somewhere along the line, Kevin Feige said that he's going to try and drop the whole phase structure, so they're not going to do phases anymore, which I think would be a huge shame.
It would because
it
takes off like how the MCU works, right? We're so used to seeing how I love to see phase 4, phase 5, phase 6. Like I think he basically doesn't want people to be predicting things based off how the first 3 phases were. So like
he doesn't want people to be able to predict what's going to happen next.
Because I've been doing that with how, you know, they introduce next villain. So I feel after Far From Home, that's the end of phase 3. Black Widow film starts it off as a prequel, or it'll be the Eternals or whatever. I think the next few films will be
I think we're getting Black Widow next. I'm pretty sure that's already in production.
I think they started filming like this week.
Yeah.
But like that will be out first, I'm sure. I'm thinking maybe Doctor Strange could be the lead up, because it's been it'll be like 4 or 5 years since he had his last film, and he was very influential in both Avengers films. Of course, he's the one. It was like in his perspective, like this is what Doctor Strange saw and is playing out. And it would be interesting to see how he's dealt with the after effects of Endgame, and going into future phases. He knows like what's going to happen. Does he get the time stone back? Is it now because the snap tore a hole in the dimension? Are they going to have to adapt to that? Like there might be more threats. Like of course there could be more things.
I'm of the camp that Mysterio is not lying. Like, the Mysterio that we saw in the trailers of Far From Home is actually, like, a good guy, and that he's come from a different dimension, and that all this multiverse stuff, like, because I don't want that to be a lie. I really do want that to be, like, the next big thing.
I feel the multiverse thing is true, and the fact that the snap tore that, because I think Tony's snap must have caused that, because there was 3 snaps at that time. In total, and...
But, I mean, what I'm saying, more or less, what I'm saying is that I think the multiverse thing is true, and I want it to be true that he's come from a different multiverse.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
I don't necessarily want him to, like, maybe he's lying about being a good guy. Maybe that's the lie.
I think, but, I don't want it to be fully true, because then it would just be like, oh, okay, he's a good guy, that's it. Like, Mysterio it's in the name, he's mysterious. We don't know everything, what his origin is. Like, introducing him into the MCU now, we're going to be curious of how they do it.
I do think it's interesting. Mysterio, I've said this before on my podcast, Mysterio is a character that we never see his face.
Yes.
So I do think it's very telling that Far From Home cast Jake Gyllenhaal, because Jake Gyllenhaal is a face. Like, that's not just a face, it's like the face.
I get you, yeah.
What if this is like Mysterio from 8-6, whatever it was that he came from, but actually like the real Mysterio on Earth doesn't have a face, and it's not, you know, and so maybe there's good Mysterio, bad Mysterio going on. I don't know, but what I'm kind of saying is that I like the idea of going forward there being a multiverse, and I think a lot of what they've set up now is primed for the next Endgame probably to be something like Secret Wars. Do you know? Of course, you know
Yeah,
Secret Wars.
do you know Secret Wars has been one of the comics I think will be the next big culmination of the next phases, because it's bigger than it could. That's one film that could potentially be bigger than Endgame. I mean, that pretty much has every character we know, and even more.
And think about it from this perspective. By the time they get to Secret Wars, they've probably got the rights to all of Hulk, probably by then. We've got all of the X-Men, we've got all of the Fantastic Four, and we've got the contract with Sony. What else do we need? We have everybody.
Exactly.
Everyone's here.
All it is like you just add other characters that they haven't even put out yet. Like
exactly.
There will probably be Miles Morales in it. You'll probably have both Spider-Mans. It'll be like the dream. So you'll probably get the original six back, and I feel even if a few of the characters died, I feel like we got the multiverse, so they can easily come out the multiverse.
Oh, absolutely,
and
absolutely.
Then they could probably
need
bring
to take time.
They could probably bring, you know, like the X-Men and Fantastic Four. They will bring him from the multiverse. I feel like.
You think so?
I feel with the way time travel is, you know how they altered things. That is a reasonable explanation to show all these different realities, and I think eventually they'll join together, and they could probably make one timeline then.
That's definitely
something.
Do you think they're gonna bring the X-Men from like the Fox properties, or do you think they're gonna reboot?
See, I think if they really want to make it fresh, and there's been a stigma with the X-Men films, we have to say, like, there's been a big
stigma is a very nice word to describe it.
It is, like, literally, you know how Fox, I won't give him like loads of stick, but they did props to how they did Wolverine, but I do feel in terms of how they did the X-Men films, they weren't. I just feel the structure or there was things missing, you know?
Yeah, they were a specific story. I mean, if you think about it as the Jean Grey Chronicles, then actually it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But they're not X-Men films.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels too much of like it doesn't feel like a collaboration, you know? You know, like how they did Avengers, like the structure's right. The storyline balances and everyone comes together. With X-Men, it just feels like, he's here, that's it. Like, I just feel there's like a pizzazz, you know?
The infamous Jubilee that was cut from what was it? Days of Future Past or whatever. Like, how do you cut Jubilee from, like, I don't know. Anyway, and we can discuss kind of what we think about the merge and X-Men in the what's
future,
going on with the X-Men currently in a second. But I think, to me, in my opinion, I think probably we are good to get away with putting the X-Men on Earth in the main timeline. Here's why. Number one, you've got Professor Xavier, who could have just been like under the radar the whole time. Number two, I think we've had all that discussion from Nick Fury of like the world is filling up with people with powers we don't understand or we can't deal with or whatever. And that's a perfect way to just kind of go, oh, he was referring to the X-Men or he was referring to mutants. And of course, and then the other reason is that they have been kind of moving towards selling the MCU as like two-tiered. There's the cosmic stuff and the grounded stuff. And if you think about the cosmic stuff, it's pretty crowded now. It's Guardians of the Galaxy and
there's
Thor
a lot there.
and Captain Marvel, right?
Yeah.
Whereas on Earth, who have we got? Spider-Man, Black Panther, and that's it. Because Doctor Strange is Mystic, and he's kind of also kind of like...
Again, I feel like
spacey.
the one person who's going to be influential in connecting the cosmic and the Earth will be Doctor Strange. I mean, remember originally in the comics, the Infinity Gauntlet comic, Silver Surfer, a cosmic being, was the one to land in his sanctorium, and he was the one to warn Doctor Strange about Thanos. Obviously did that with Hulk and Banner, which was really good. And I do feel that was kind of hinting that Doctor Strange is going to connect like Nova and the new Guardians, you know, like Adam Warlock's coming in the next Guardians as a villain, I think. Then he'll become good.
And then you got the Eternals,
Nova,
as you said.
We've got people we're waiting for, like Sentry. Have you seen this? Yeah. There's been a casting for the Eternals, so there's been...
I didn't see that. That's really cool.
If you check it out after this, like, it's quite...
Yeah.
They have quite a few people, I think. It's just rumours, so nothing 100%. But, you know, characters like Hercules are going to come in as well, and There could be a younger Thanos as well, or maybe the father of Thanos, who was mentioned by Red Skull on Vormir, but of course we're gonna probably find that out in Eternals.
Yeah.
I do think Eternals would be quite good.
Go on.
Yeah, that's all I want to say.
Oh, okay. Well, what I was going to say was, first of all, absolutely Doctor Strange is going to be the link. But in doing so, we have so little, as I was saying, so little on Earth, other than maybe Black Panther and Spider-Man, unless I'm forgetting someone. But I feel like everybody else is up in space now. Captain Marvel's up in space. The Eternals, Nova, Guardians of the Galaxy, Thor. Unless you wanted to do something with Valkyrie on Earth. But I think she's kind of done
Valkyrie, she's quite... I don't know how they're going to do it with her. Like, is she just going to be like the kind of the side character? Of course, there's no Loki now in the main timeline. I have a feeling
it's probably more of a cameo type situation now. I think it's probably like, oh, we know we have her on Earth in case there's a situation, and then she just pops up somewhere. Because I mean, there's a rumor going around that they're doing Thor 4. Like, did you see the rumored release?
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, that was on Reddit. I'm not sure about that.
I think Reddit's got some good sources, but you got to take it with a grain of salt, of course.
Absolutely, and I don't think it makes sense. They'd have to make it make sense to do another Thor. As much as I love Thor and I love the new direction, you could probably just put him in a Guardians movie and be sorted. Like,
I just think the way they've gave him, because I looked it up, so out of the MCU Trinity, he's had the least screen time. So I feel if he does get more movies, like another Thor film, I mean, the success for Ragnarok and the love for it, I think Thor deserves that like extra opportunity to go and be in more, because like, of course he wasn't in Civil War, and there were a few movies where you felt like, oh, we're just missing that, that mystic being who comes from another world and then he comes to Earth. Like, we need the cosmic thing to come in now. It's perfect timing. And I love to see how Thor now goes into that cosmic side, because he was on Earth when he helped the Avengers. And obviously with his relationship with Jane, which deteriorated badly. And then going to Asgard. He's kind of like the traveler in this. Like, he goes from here to there.
He is the wandering chess piece that you can kind of, and I think that's probably why I don't see a need for Thor. I'd love a Thor 4 from Taika Waititi. Do not get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Don't misunderstand me. But like, if Thor just kind of showed up in Guardians and then maybe showed up in Nova, or was in an end credits scene for the Eternals or something, I don't know. It would make more sense to me as a like, because Thor's had his Trinity, but maybe, I mean, another 3 wouldn't hurt. Another 3 would not hurt. You're absolutely right. But that's definitely... Thor and Doctor Strange would be a good way to kind of link from space back home.
I don't think they will need, like, I don't mean like they need like he needs another 3 films, but yeah, like you said,
just one more, right?
Yeah, like one more film of like 4-4, because I feel like the success for Ragnarok was so good, and I feel like his story, there's still things left. Like, Guardians is, I don't expect him to be the lead role, but I expect him to be, that side character who will be more influential. And of course, there's no Gamora, so I don't know how the story goes out. Like, do they look for her? Do they?
This is what I was.
It's interesting.
I'm not understanding that, because that's apparently gonna, like, everyone's assumption immediately after Endgame was, oh, well, the reason that Quill's looking and searching for Gamora is that's gonna be the plot of Guardians 3. Yeah. And I was thinking, to what end? Like, so you find Gamora and then she doesn't really know who you are, and I'm not sure that like, I think James Gunn gave it away when he said he was looking forward to working with Rocket, because I think Rocket's probably going to be the focus of the 3rd movie.
I feel like Rocket there's more depth there,
Yeah. There's a story that hasn't been told. Where is he from? That has been a payoff we've been waiting for since the 1st movie.
And who created him?
Who made him? Exactly. And there was this... did you hear about the thing of, like, oh, he might be one of Thanos' children or whatever? And
yeah,
he was like,
I heard that. And
right?
that is a really interesting theory, because did you notice in Infinity War, he was the only person that didn't
want to see Thanos.
Yeah, he didn't actually fight him or even attempt to shoot him. Unlike Bucky and the others. Like, he probably... Even when he was talking to Ford, when he kind of basically gave all the references from his life story, and he was talking like what he could lose, and Rocket goes, yeah, there's a lot I could lose.
Yeah.
And he was saying like Thanos is like, you know, he's the biggest out there. It's like he knows so much of Thanos already. Like he must have had previous experience.
Yeah, and I think it was probably deliberate that Rocket had no FaceTime with Thanos, no proximity to Thanos at all. The closest he got to Thanos was maybe the final fight in Endgame or maybe the final boss fight in Infinity War. But even then, Rocket wasn't in that final like little bit of the thing where Thanos comes out of the space stone. Like he was nowhere to be found. No pun intended.
I just feel like it's too much of a big thing that Marvel missed out, and I think Marvel have deliberately done that because we know how planned out they are, and they do these things. Like, for example, do you know when Thor didn't go for the head in Infinity War? They reference that immediately when they killed Thanos, and Rocket goes, "What did you do?" Which is exactly what Thor said in Infinity War, and he goes, "I went for the head." Like, I love that scene as well.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, did you notice that? No one in my cinema reacted. I found it funny because it's like he's addressing what the fandom was saying, like, yeah, you should have gone for the head, man. And then, like, he's then going, yeah, I did what he pretty much told me to, go for the head, and I killed the bastard. But then you've obviously got the 5-year jump, and, well, the 5-year jump in Endgame as well.
Going back to Endgame and chatting about that particular bit where he lops his head off, it was really odd to watch the first time. I can remember it being really difficult to watch because here's Captain Marvel being a boss, and then everyone comes in, it's like, where are the stones? And the stones are gone. And that's the first moment where my stomach dropped, because I was like, wait, hold on, wasn't the point that we used the stones to go back in time or something? Wasn't that, like, because that was one of the theories, is that, you know, because I was like, why would we invent time travel if there's a time stone? And of course, how do you do that? You get rid of the time stone. And how would you get rid of the time stone? I don't know. You just click your fingers, apparently, and just disintegrate them and almost kill yourself.
That was a really big talking point before Endgame. People were thinking, what is going to happen to the stones? It's in Thanos' possession. He's done the snap. Does he just keep them? Does he use them for later? Or
how can they possibly go and get them off him? He's got all the best power in the universe.
In the comics, it was literally... Sorry, in the comics...
No, go ahead.
They basically said, like, it was impossible to, like, destroy the stones. There was no way. They just kind of went, he said I reduced them to atoms. So basically...
He used the stones to destroy the stones, which probably makes a lot of sense. It's like using... You know, it's like only vibranium is susceptible to vibranium or something like that.
Yeah. And I'm just curious, like, it's obviously because when he has all the stones, like I think it's the Mind Stone, basically, it lets you decide what you do with it. And
Reality Stone, probably Power Stone, juiced everything up, that kind of thing. I think the first moment I recognized there was something wrong was when Thanos sits down and his whole side, like, it's like he was not looking like that at the end of Infinity War. Like, he was chill at the end of it, and his whole side is like atrophied. Up until that point, I was laughing because I was like, Thanos, like, I know Farmer Thanos had been like a meme online for the last year. It's like, oh, he's just gonna be on a farm farming, and I was like, they're not gonna do that, and they did, and I was laughing the whole time. I was like,
it was
really?
Right.
When Thanos is just gonna pick stuff from the thing and then like cook it like potatoes. Really?
He was
just
what
we're gonna watch?
He did exactly what he said. Like, he'll just retire peacefully on like a planet. And what I found funny was just like he's done everything. He's cooking. And the one crazy part is, you know, we didn't know he destroyed the stones until that point when they showed it.
Yeah.
You could see like the effect of the second snap.
Yeah, exactly. So he sits down and his whole side is atrophied. I'm like, that's weird to watch. Then in comes Captain Marvel, boom, and it's too easy. At that point, like, I mean, Captain Marvel is powerful, but here comes Hulk out the ground, and I'm like, this is too easy. Why is
and like Rhodey's holding him, and then Thor just comes swinging in, cuts his arm off. And I'm like, damn. And I was like,
that's too easy. All of that is far too... Like, at that point, something turns on my stomach because I'm like, we are a full-on maybe 10 minutes into this movie. This is not it. Out comes the fact that there's no stones. Off comes his head, and I'm like, kids are meant to watch this? And you cut Thanos' head off.
I'm not going to lie, but I think Endgame should have been given more mature ratings because it's not a kid's film. A kid will...
it's not.
Literally, there's been reports of this... she's like a young teenager or probably around my age. she basically couldn't stop crying from the ending and
Oh, yeah.
things from the film, and like it's not the Thanos part specific, of course. Like everyone wants him dead, but like it was obviously the Tony bit, and she literally had to be hospitalized because she literally had uncontrollable crying, and they've worried about her and stuff. And it's like this film can affect anyone. Like,
well, yeah, I think the thing is that Disney gets a lot of passes on stuff like that because it's like, you know, what, you're going to give an R rating to a comic book movie? Like, I mean, you can justify it with Deadpool because they just go full on off the cliff.
Yeah,
like,
they do.
Violent. But they teeter on that PG-13, and there's probably, I hate to say it, a little bit of money changing hands because that is not a PG-13 movie. Like, you're meant to be able to take young kids to that, and I would not. Like, there's so much death and destruction in Endgame.
Oh, there is, yeah.
You know, like any other startup movie would not get that kind of rating. But hey, I'm not complaining because it I nailed it. And I think the other thing that so what was I saying? The cutting of the head and the arms, and like it was crazy. Like that bit was insane.
Wow, that was.
And then imagine we don't see Thanos and like for ages in that movie. Now it's just back to the core 6, no one's around, depressing as hell.
Oh, like, God, yeah.
And I remember the reviews coming out going, oh, the first act's really slow. And I'm like, well, then you haven't been here long enough.
Yeah,
that's not a slow first act for an Avengers movie. It was all.
It was like the first 20 minutes, it's simple. They want to find him. They want to find Thanos. They want to get what get the stones back, try and get everyone back. Realize they can't. 5-year time jump. Of course, their opportunity comes through Ant-Man. Obviously, the rat is the MVP because... Can you imagine all the 40 million possibilities where the rat didn't go to, like, basically
I think... Here's my thing, is that Doctor Strange said he only saw 1 in the 14 million.
Yes.
But there were probably a couple after that. He just stopped searching.
Because
he found one.
That's a theory as well. Like, why is it just that number? Like, it's probably just so, like, we could go on forever, but we got to have a number here.
We found one. And and I think the other thing is that everyone goes, so is this the only way this could have happened? And it's like, no, it's the only way it could have happened after Tony is stranded on Titan with Spider-Man. Like there are so many other iterations of this movie that could have happened if Tony had stayed on Earth, or if because then they could have all teamed up in Wakanda or something. Like instead, it had to be. There were only that many opportunities because we were that late in the game and we were so far from Earth. I always find that interesting when people are like, surely we could have done this, and this. And I was like, yeah, but that's before he was stranded on Titan. Yeah. And before we basically had no way of getting off that planet. And I think, again, my view is that was just when Doctor Strange stopped, and there were many other opportunities because that rat could have turned up on that dashboard at any point in time in any of those. So it just happened to be 5 years. It could have been 10 years. But it's still kind of, I think the other thing that I found really jarring, even though it was meant to be a nice thing, was Tony having a kid. And I know we're meant to love it, and we're meant to go, Morgan is good, awesome, and I love you 3000, and all of it worked.
Yeah, it really did.
When I first saw that Tony had a kid, it was like, oh, we haven't earned this. Like, I don't know what's happened in these 5 years. I don't know you, little kid. Like, I don't.
Yeah, I feel like they basically wanted to leave. Like the kid doesn't even. It's not fully aware of the snap and everything. Morgan knows that her father's died. That's it. Like, Pepper has to break that news. What happens in the future? Like, is that teasing like she'll be like in the new Avengers film, the Young Avengers film that will come out?
My theory is that because she's named after Morgan Stark, she's going to end up being a bad guy.
Do you know, that's a good theory, because his cousin was the one that was like re-troubling and didn't live up to him.
Morgan Stark in the comics is a bad guy. Why would you name his kid after a bad... Why, you could have picked any name in Iron Man lore. You could have called her Riri for all I care.
Well, it's a good point. Like, they did... Remember in Captain Marvel... Wasn't a big fan of the movie, but one thing I recognised was... Marvel was basically in S.H.I.E.L.D. and they made Marvel isn't exactly bad, but like they made Marvel bad in the movie. It was it's kind of similar if they did that with Morgan Stark. Do
you mean Oh, you mean that Marvella's meant to be bad, but actually they made her good in the movie?
They made her good, and then like they revealed her as bad. Like it's, I feel like with
Oh,
Morgan
do you
Stark.
mean when? Do you mean? Oh no. She wasn't bad. She was good on Earth, but the Supreme Intelligence looked like her because that was in her memory. In Carol's memories. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Do you remember that? No. Do you remember that scene? Because she pretty much they revealed her like she was basically bad. Like because you remember she took the Tesseract, and then it wasn't when she was the Doctor. It was when she was like pretty much.
Oh, when she went rogue.
Yeah, pretty much when she went rogue. It's like Morgan Stark could have that, but we're not too sure like what her future is. But of course, you know, like Cassie Lang grew up in the 5 years, and you had
now that is gonna pay off now. Like I think that's definitely new Avengers material now.
Or maybe
like,
Ant-Man 3. Like she'll be like in the film with Scott Lang and the Wasp. Like it'll be a bigger team up.
Yep.
I do feel there's also the one big thing at the funeral at the back as well. Iron Lad. Is it possible that Harvey, you know, the kid that was basically in Iron Man 3?
Yeah. I didn't realize that he had such a big role in, like, I just saw him as a kid. Is he Iron Lad in the comics?
Yeah, so that kid becomes Iron Lad, and later, and this is the thing, right? He has quite a interesting development because in the future, in the way far further in the future, he basically becomes Kang the Conqueror, and Iron Lad is basically him, but younger.
I thought Kang was Reed Richards.
Yes, that's true as well. I think there was, I don't know if that was like a different comic line or different story. They changed it, but
got you.
Yeah, Iron Lad was Kang the Conqueror. So there's a theory that, you know, with this time travel.
I like this idea.
Yeah. Kang the Conqueror.
Yeah,
he's gonna try and like come to all these realities and basically go back in time, and he's probably gonna try and connect them into one timeline so he can basically make sure there's no other realities trying to get back to him. Like that would be quite interesting as well.
And I think that's a good way around my one gripe with having him be Iron Lad, which is that I don't think he was cast with the idea that he'd end up being Iron Lad. Because I don't see him necessarily. Props to him because he was a great child actor, but now that he's grown up, I'm not getting the same vibe.
There's so much time has passed. Like other than the time jump, if you think about it, the timeline for Iron Man 3 and Endgame is 10 years, 2013 to 2023. That boy has not been seen for 10 years, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
We're curious, like, how are we going to relate to someone without, you know, obviously Captain Marvel wasn't around for 20 years, but they're going to explain that in films. But with Iron Lad, like, well, if he is Iron Lad, like, Harvey's just a young kid that we saw. We haven't related to him properly. You might have liked him, you know, like Morgan Stark, like, oh, he's a cute little kid. We like his chemistry with one of the characters, but
it's that vibe. It's absolutely that vibe of like it's a kid and he was great, but like I'm not sure he's Iron Lad. But if you then cast Kang the Conqueror from the future, you can pick anybody, and suddenly
that's what
becomes
I'm interested in. Like,
yeah,
what they do is so this is another thing after Endgame. No post-credit scene. Obviously, we all waited. I can imagine the Americans going a bit mad in your screening, going, "Is that it?" Like,
you know what was interesting is that some people left, which I was like, "What is happening?"
I was like they must have known.
You should know better. They must have known. And then the rest of us kind of all waited for those last three. And after the last three kind of hits of the hammer happened, there was like a really sober kind of tearful round of applause because everyone was like, "Oh, I get it. It's Tony," and it was like this kind of like as if we weren't crying enough. Like we were proper, like the whole like sniffles from left, right, and center. We lost it when Tony got those. Like when Tony got the stones, it was great, but like and we cheered. But immediately after that, when he went, "I am Iron Man," and snapped his fingers, everyone went silent. Like it wasn't even like woo. It was like,
God.
Oh,
do you know when my audience saw him have all the stones and you see his reaction to it? I was like, oh my God, he basically, I watched a video on why Thanos was threatened by Stark. And you know, there's one big thing here, adaptation, that keyword, right?
Yes.
Look how Stark adapts to all his situations, all his battles, and he creates a better suit. Even though he lost to Thanos, he made a suit to beat him and to better him. Yeah. Even if it's not physically, it's like the moment he gets it, he can still better him. Like, he used a nanotech gauntlet his own creation.
Yeah, exactly.
He pulled the stones
there was
off. Bang.
There was that thing where people were like, well, why didn't he do that in Infinity War? It was, what was his
It's
name?
the build-up,
Idri?
right?
Oh, yeah, it was a different gauntlet. Like,
Yeah.
were you
Itri's
paying
gauntlet,
attention?
yes.
Yeah, Itri, there you go, Itri. That was Itri's gauntlet. Like, he couldn't, like, he built it into the nanotech gauntlet. He couldn't just take the stones from, like, a regular-ass gauntlet.
Yeah, and
the whole point is that it was
I feel even if they tried that, it would have been cool to see like an edge-on scene where they like getting the stones off, but Thanos is still like, he's got that omnipotence, like you can't beat this guy, like he's literally impossible. Like they could have shown like a really dramatic scene, but I feel like
you're right.
In Endgame, the way he got the stones off him, that paid off because Stark was always the person he feared was Stark. It wasn't even Hulk. In the comics, it was Hulk, but in the MCU, it was Stark.
Yeah, and I think when Thanos says that he knows who Stark is,
it was due to that scene.
I think we forget this guy had the Mind Stone before 2012.
Yeah.
And the Mind Stone would have told him, like, if you're trying to gain all 6 stones, your biggest issue is going to be this guy on Earth. And so the first thing he does is sends the Mind Stone with Loki to go and get another stone. Why would he do that? Because he's thinking, take out 2 birds with 1 stone.
And that's a good
stones.
point, because not only Loki, like, not only Loki could relay the information, he didn't though, but the stone could give him that knowledge in a way.
Exactly, and he could help him like persuade people or whatever and keep them kind of like what he did with Hawkeye in that movie.
That's a good point, because like, if you think about it, he also knows Stark because of the nuke that had Stark Industries on it, which he basically destroyed the Chitauri. And he probably either he saw the missile or he basically learned of it. And there could have been a scene where, I don't know, like, because I'd like to see how he knew Stark though, because it is still kind of like just there, like maybe a piece of debris, and he's like, he destroyed my army, and like he's like, who is this?
To
and
me, in my head, the continuity is that he found out about Stark through the Mind Stone because that was the one stone he did.
That's a good theory. I never thought of that.
Right, and then he sends it to go and get rid of Stark, only for Stark to succeed anyway.
Yeah.
And now you're mad. You're not just like, oh, this is someone that's going to, this is someone the Mind Stone is telling me is an issue. I've now seen firsthand this guy is ballsy and is going to be tough to beat. And then over time, it just gets worse and worse. And so I'm gonna make a video like way later in the year when Endgame is out on DVD about the whole thing of Tony and sleep and like this kind of motif of like this guy doesn't sleep and he's paranoid.
He's got like PTSD because he can't rest over the fact that there's something out there and he won't rest until it's finished,
And his big final words from Pepper are, "You can rest now."
Yeah.
That's significant. Why would you put that in there? It's like this long overarching thing.
Do you remember in the film? Like, she basically, when he clocks time travel, and he's like, I just figured out time travel. She's like, oh, wow.
You rest?
And then she's but can you rest now? And now thinking, can you live with this? Like,
you see
the Stark?
And that's the whole thing of Tony Stark's arc. And I think the other thing that adds to that is Scarlet Witch, when she like works out what's in his mind at the beginning of Age of Ultron and lets him take the Mind Stone. She says that the biggest thing that is going to destroy Tony Stark is Tony Stark.
Yeah.
And all of that ties in together, and it's a big thing in his thing. And no wonder then Thanos would, it wouldn't be that Thanos gets the warning from the Mind Stone that the Avengers are going to cause him an issue. Because the Avengers don't necessarily cause him an issue. It's Tony Stark specifically that is causing him an issue. It's not the Avengers on Titan. It's not the Avengers sending the nuke up to kill like 90% of the Chitauri.
Yeah.
It's always Tony Stark, always.
It's always
so even
him.
Even in 2014, he's thinking, Tony Stark, got to get rid of you. Yeah, I know who you are. I'm getting rid of you.
He knows that the reason why, like, in the comics, apparently the way with Thanos, his ideal was he wanted to be defeated. Like, he wants something to basically kill him. Like, it's quite weird in the head like that. And I'd like to know...
and Mistress Death and all that stuff, too.
He's got very deep storyline, very, very deep storyline, like, more dark than Batman, I think. He was mistreated as a kid, and there's loads of things like that, and I'd love to know more about Thanos. And why he thinks like that.
Do you think that might be part of the Eternals movie?
I do agree. Like, it will be a part of it because
Hmm.
I don't think they're gonna just introduce a very big villain and we don't know anything about him. Like, even when they didn't show the scene with him destroying the Nova Corps, like, we'll probably see that in Nova and we'll see Thanos.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how they're gonna, obviously easing into the next phases, like, how they're gonna bring about the what's just happened. Like, again, Nova, he'll probably, if he meets the Guardians, he'll talk about Thanos, and they'll have like interconnectivity, and they'll basically be able to make a good storyline for the future.
Yeah. And I think also the other thing is we've got to remember the MCU has 4 years to kill because it has just jumped 5 years into the future. So if Black Widow is a prequel, if the Eternals is a prequel, if Nova is a prequel, like the more prequels you can do, the more time we have to stall the timeline so that the next movie we get is in the current year.
Do you know?
Because I think the more the Marvel universe and the timeline sticks to the current timeline, the more grounded it feels. Otherwise, it feels like it's happening in a completely different world.
I feel they've got to make sure they keep that consistent. Like, with the time jump, I'm glad they've had something like that because there's so much to play with there. Well, the Widow film apparently has been rumored it's going to be set post Civil War before Infinity War.
Post Civil War before Infinity War,
but
which I thought handicapped them a little bit.
I don't know.
That is the time that she was a fugitive with Cap.
Yeah,
and they don't have Cap, so what are they going to do? As much
as I'd love to see a film on their journey and Tony's, like, in the 2 years they were divided before Infinity War. But I want to see if it, the 5 years with, how Widow kind of took a lead and she was like the scout of, I was saying about how she could be leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. She kind of showed that, how they had that little... Yeah, she
was the leader of the Avengers.
Like, she had that little conference with Rhodey, Captain Marvel, Okoye, Rocket.
Yeah.
And, like, she was taking charge, just to see things are going on. And then Rhodey talks about Clint, what he's been doing.
Yeah.
Like, they could show in those years, in the time jump, what she's been doing.
Yeah.
We could know more about Nat and, why she wanted to sacrifice herself, like, with that, like,
I think that is something, absolutely, if they're going to make a Black Widow film, they need to explain to me why it was so important that she jumped off that cliff.
Yeah.
Because at the time, I was like, this makes no emotional sense to me. She's like, this last 5 years, all I've been waiting for is to get these people back. And I'm like, but I haven't seen that, so I don't feel that. But I, in that moment, was like, this is going to be the reason we have the movie. Because there's something to say here about why she felt that she needed to be the martyr.
I'd love to
5
see
years.
like how, because it was like a moment. She's like, "Oh, we have to do this," like, and she just decides volunteering. I'd love to see a build up with, how Stark, his life ended up being his demise was to sacrifice and save everyone. With Widow,
from selfish to
I'd like
selfless.
to see more references, more quotes, in like signifying that she's gonna die. Because we didn't expect that, Not saying we expected Stark to die, but, it's kind of like a prediction.
No.
But with Widow, you were thinking, like, they'll keep her. But if they were going to sacrifice her, you kind of want you want more depth there, like...
Yeah.
I like how it was Clint that was with her, but there has to be more depth with her.
And the MCU is the one and only film franchise where in a future movie you can add more context to a past movie and make the past movie more impactful.
Yeah.
So if the Black Widow film does that, Endgame is going to be all the more better for it.
Yeah, exactly. I just can't wait for the next phases, like...
Me neither.
A lot of people are like...
I think I think the other thing is that we are going, as if it wasn't painful enough to spend a year not knowing anything about what was going to happen.
Yeah.
We are now going to have to continue that practice of patience because I think Kevin Feige is not going to give us a slate like he did ever again.
I think he's going to be, ironically enough, he's going to be more secret about things like after Endgame. Like he's just maybe that's a way of him teasing, like, this is how future movies will be. Like, he might release a bit of this and a bit of that. If it's like a solo film, he probably will make it bigger, but a big... the next Avengers film, there's probably going to be nothing on that. Like, we're not going to know anything.
Nah, we're not... I have a feeling we're about to get trolled, and we're going to go into this summer thinking we're getting a Phase 4 slate, and we're just going to get one movie announced.
Do you know, I agree with that.
And the whole internet will melt. Because I think we're just going to have to... Because the one nemesis of Kevin Feige has been that we've known what's coming up next, and so we've not felt the stakes the same way. And it drove the Russos to put the snap at the end of a movie, because who would predict that? No one can predict that, knowing that there's a second movie around the corner. So I think we are heading towards an MCU future where we have no clue which movie is next until we watch the post-credit scene. And then we go, oh my gosh, it's going to be
with Spider-Man,
Black Panther.
I am curious
exactly.
what the post-credit scene is. Either teasing the next Spider-Man, or does it tease like maybe some of the heroes we haven't seen? Like, I'm really curious because with Guardians 2, we saw quite a few post-credit scenes. You know, like the next Guardians kind of teasing, or the next adventure. Then they tease Adam Warlock, who we need a payoff. But I
don't think they will put an MCU, and this is weird though, I don't think they'll put an MCU future into a Spider-Man Sony post-credit scene. I think they're going to probably just do Oscorp.
I just think, it'll be teased about what's there. Like, that makes sense. Like, I'm curious on which film other than that will be the biggest teaser, because I want to know, like, the next Avengers film. I'll be honest, like, all these Avengers films are big as they were, but you know how how the things are getting bigger. The expectations are going up, right? So this next Avengers film might have to be like maybe as good as Infinity War or Endgame. Like, that's how hard it's going to be to top it. Or it'll be like the first Avengers, where they introduce, everyone together.
Yeah, unless they just forego the Avengers altogether for Phase 4, and they just go, well, our Avengers for this, our team-up movies for this phase as Guardians, and that's it. And good luck trying to work out what we're doing.
Do you know what? It is very puzzling, because there's so many things you can say, and if you don't have the evidence, you're just going to be slumped like, shit, what are they going to do?
Yeah, I think that's what's now scary and exciting about the MCU, is that there is no path that you can predict now. Because, I mean, we can sit and look at the comics all the live long day. We now know that they don't care about the comics. They'll make up their own story.
Yeah.
And they've got the X-Men and Fantastic Four, but we're not expecting that for, 5 years now?
Yeah, I don't think the Fantastic... Well, I think the Fantastic Four will be introduced first, but I feel like the X-Men need that maybe 5-year break. Like, they need a time jump, if you think about it, because, like, they need people need to let that sink in with how it is. Like, they don't want to just rush X-Men in. And, I was saying about the stigma. They've got to let that go. Yeah, they've got to let it go. And I think the other thing, we'll talk about all of this when we do the Dark Phoenix talk. But the other thing is that it's really sad that they're trying to do Dark Phoenix again, because that pretty much means, I think someone else was saying this to me in the Cube, probably even Callum, who you guys will meet when we do the X-Men thing, is they're probably not going to touch Dark Phoenix now at Marvel Studios for at least another 20 years. Our kids will watch the Dark Phoenix MCU. Oh, they will definitely be like, that was the best film I've ever seen. Like, Marvel's great. No, you haven't seen. Yeah. The day I have a son and he goes, Dad, what's Endgame? I'm going to go, son, you do not know what this was. And he's going to watch that and be like, I want more, Dad. Like,
I was having that discussion with someone the other day. I was like, when we try and explain this to our kids, we're gonna have to forbid them from watching any of the movies until they've watched them.
Oh my god! Like,
because imagine if your kid comes to you and you've gone, I watched Endgame, I didn't like it, and it's like, well, why didn't you like it? Well, I just watched it, and I'm like, did you watch any of the other movies?
Oh
no.
God!
And now they've spoiled themselves for the whole saga. It's like,
do you know what? I think kid punishment and like child abuse will go up if things are getting spoiled, and we'll know exactly why. It'll be after this debate. Like, we'll just be like, we checked the statistics. Yeah, it's pretty bad now.
Exactly.
I actually think, there's so much there. Like, we can. I just love how Marvel have left you thinking like what they're gonna do, and they're like grabbing us, like grabbing our hearts, and like they've got us there.
Yeah, like I found it egregious that they could just play the Avengers theme, and I just started bawling, like crying, proper crying.
I love that theme, by the way, the credits one. It's great. Like,
right?
I've been listening to the soundtrack a lot, but
the soundtrack is beautiful. And I was one of the one kind of defenders of the Infinity War soundtrack. Everyone was going, those kind of think pieces on YouTube. Why the Avengers music is so boring? And I'm like, you bastards! One day you'll understand. one day you'll understand, and then here comes Endgame, and one note, da da da
Do you know
da,
what?
suddenly everyone's crying.
I'm not gonna lie, when I have a kid, I'm literally gonna play the Avengers theme. My wife's like, "Oh, I'm expecting." I'm like, "Wait! This is the biggest moment. I've been waiting my entire life. Like, I've been waiting like 10 years for this." And then literally the Endgame theme plays, or like just the Avengers theme from the first one, and like she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "It's the Avengers theme. You know me well enough."
It's like playing Mozart to your baby. You're gonna play the Avengers theme to your baby.
and then the baby just like the baby delivers, and then it's like, "Here's our Avenger. What we call him? Let's call him Cap. Let's call him Captain America."
Captain America, Steve. We're gonna go call him Steve.
Oh god. We didn't really touch a lot on Cap about his ending, but I'm sure we can talk about that in another podcast or collab.
Absolutely. I mean, just to touch on it briefly, I think it was the thing you needed to do so that you didn't just kind of cut everything off at death.
Yeah.
Like, if Cap died and Tony died and Black Widow died, yikes. That's not as satisfying as knowing that he got his dance and everything.
It's too, like, depressing, right? Like, the acceptance of it is not there.
Yeah.
Like,
and I think it was beautiful, because it was like the Russos came in on Winter Soldier, and then have just given him this perfect, beautiful ending, and that's how the movie ends. And I think that was it. It was the perfect bow on their work with Marvel. I thought it was beautiful. Yeah.
I love because I'm a big Cap fan. He's definitely my most favorite character out of all of them. I love them all, but he's the one for me, and I'm glad he got that ending and just passing the shield to Sam and then getting the nod from Bucky. I really like that moment. Like
and it was obvious Bucky knew that Steve was gonna leave. Like if you watch the footage beforehand, he's like, "Goodbye, I'm gonna miss you, buddy." Like, why would he say that? And so he knew, and he was fine with Sam being Captain America, because like he's Winter Soldier. Like he's chill. He's like a fugitive and whatever. Like. Yeah,
the moment he said that, like, I'm gonna miss you, bud. You just, I feel like Bucky, just when the whole time travel thing, like, there was a bit they didn't show, but he probably thought, well, if he's returning the stones and he's going back in time, there's got to be that one girl he's missed, and that's his opportunity.
Yeah, and I mean, if you before anyone thinks like, oh, why didn't Bucky also go, or why couldn't Bucky also go? Bucky didn't have a Peggy to go back to.
Yeah.
The only thing he was going to be going back to was like, the old life he had or whatever that was sorry, my alarm, sorry.
Sorry.
is like his old life and like what he used to be doing, but he was off to the military, and then after that, he knows how the world ends up going. He's seen history. Like he's better off in the 21st century. So yeah, I thought just the perfect ending, and absolutely Sam should be like Falcon should definitely be.
He's
Captain
the one
America.
at the moment. Like Bucky, it wouldn't feel right for him to just suddenly become Captain America, especially like how he's been revealed. He was like the weapon of Hydra. I think he will eventually become Cap for a bit, but I feel like Sam's gonna have his turn as the comics as well. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I'm excited for the TV shows, because we were talking about like the next you're talking about the heroes on Earth. Like, we've got Falcon, Wanda, Vision. Yeah. We've got quite a lot there on Earth.
Never mind.
But like, we're gonna.
I forgot about the shows. Yeah, you're right.
The cosmic thing.